Welcome back to Floor and Ceiling, where today we'll be starting a new segment on the channel called Stock Watch. So essentially the NBA draft, as we know, it's got a lot of moving pieces. It's always changing, it's always in flux. So last year I did the thing where, I started in December, scouting reports every week about the guys who I thought were worth taking a look at. But now that the channel has been established, now that the college season and the international basketball season are both underway, I think it will be a good thing to keep an eye on these prospects on a more regular basis. So without further ado, this is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break them down. Up first, we've got Duke point guard Trevor Keels, who is off to an awfully impressive start in his freshman season. I want these videos to be a little bit more casual and conversational since it's really too early to draw final conclusions about any of these guys. Still, I want to keep everyone in the loop, and with Trevor Keels, we have to start with his defense. Keels has been a terror on the defensive end of the floor until now. I watch him play and I'm reminded of the stereotypical high school bully in movies that just goes around picking people's pockets and stealing their lunch. Keels is that sort of threat on D. He is relentless at the point of attack. His hips and feet are really quick, but the one thing that immediately sets him apart is his strength. Keels is built like the NFL's Derrick Henry almost, at 6'5" and a chiseled 220 pounds. He overwhelms attackers with his mix of physicality and know-how, averaging more than 2 steals per game as a freshman. There's a ton to like about Keels on defense. He plays with multiple efforts, tries to stay with drives, always gets a hand up to contest, and so on. Keels is relentless, the type of defender to pick up at full court or half court and not give you a second to breathe. Simply put, Keels is capable of either getting stops or contributing to a defensive play. He raises Duke's ceiling on D in a big way because honestly, he can do many things at once. Over the course of a play, Keels can close out under control, flip his hips to stay with a drive, and then force a pass off. Other times, it's more visceral than that. Keels can shadow his man for an entire possession and then use his active hands and quick reactions to get the steal. The one improvement area for Keels so far is that he can be far too eager as a defender. He's so intense and amped up that he can sometimes start ball watching or focus too much on the attacker without seeing the rest of the floor. That can lead to Keels giving up some bad cuts, which, as we have seen in other clips, he is able to deny if he is aware of what's happening. I'll get more worried if this is still a recurring issue in a few months, especially because off-ball defense is always a big adjustment for college players in the NBA. Offensively, I still want to see more, but it's clear early on that the same strength that helps him on defense also benefits Keels down the other end. So far, he's been at his best getting downhill. If you give Keels the lane in the half court or in transition, that's a problem. I think Keels is more powerful than he is explosive, so for example, he can finish through a guy, but not necessarily get up for a big dunk in traffic. Keels creates space through contact, be it bumping his man out of the way on the drive, or hanging in the air, absorbing, and finishing. He plays with rip-throughs and float-overs, which allows him to get to the rim despite not being the most creative ball handler. As for his jumper, Keels has been better than I expected so far. That's not to say he's been incredible, he has not, but I think he's shown just about enough to not be super worried. The thing I like about Keels is that he's a willing shooter. He's taking 6 threes per game despite only making them at a 32% clip. He's taken just 1 less 3-point shot than 2-point shots, which shows that Keels is not afraid to let it fly. Obviously, the percentages could get better both from deep and then also from the free throw line where he's shooting under 80%. However, Keels can make you pay. When defenses go under screens on him, he'll shoot and make these types of deep trays. As long as Keels is able to make his open threes at a respectable clip and then mix in a pull-up once in a while, I think he'll be fine. He does not need to become a lights-out shooter, but he needs to continue being a threat. However, I also have my fair share of concerns about Keels on attack. The first one is that although he's looked at his best getting downhill, we don't always see that version of Keels that can get to the rack and finish through bigs. It goes back to what I said about him being more powerful than explosive. Keels seems more like a below-the-rim finisher to me. He can get stuck under the basket, and that's because he could improve his creativity on his finishes and drives. You don't really see Keels change directions too much once he gets in the lane. He just wants to go straight ahead, but that is not always possible, especially with NCAA spacing. Keels has made just 11 of his 23 shots at the rim right now, and that should honestly be better given the tools that he has. Another important thing to note is that Keels does not have much of an in-between game. Developing a floater or a push shot at his height can help offset his weaknesses at the basket. I also worry about his jumper. Yes, he's been better than I expected so far, but Keels has been far from perfect. He is not the most fluid shooter despite his volume. Keels lacks consistency in his shot prep and release. You can see how his lower body does not stay compact and he can often kick his legs out. Finally, Keels also looks more comfortable off the catch than off the dribble. Something else that is crucial for Keels is his three-pointer. His percentage, like I said earlier, needs to get better, but beyond that, he will need to improve as an outside shooter if he cannot improve at the basket especially. Keels has a challenging role in the half court for Duke right now. He is the team's nominal point guard, but the playmakers are really Paolo Banchero and Wendell Moore. That means that Keels has to add value off the ball. If he cannot make his open threes, then that closes the lanes that he wants to get into. If he cannot make his threes, then his teammates also have less spacing, and in turn that affects Duke's half-court offense, so getting better as a shooter will be key. Second, we've got Moussa Diabate, who has helped himself in a big way early this season. Michigan's French freshman has shown flashes of being an all-around, mobile, two-way big. The potential oozes out of him, and he's been one of my favorite prospects to watch so far. Diabate can do the basics, such as catching and finishing. He's patient around the rim and can clearly get up in the air to finish. And then, Diabate is not yet the strongest, but I think he tries to play physical. At worst, he plays with good toughness already. At 6'11", Diabate can easily shoot over most defenders. He can take the ball into the block and get to work with little jump hooks. From there, Diabate has also shown glimpses of being a face-up big. He is super fluid for his size, keeping his defender on his toes with jab steps and operating with long strides. Diabate can put the ball on the floor for a few dribbles, and even though this is inconsistent, it is very appealing. If Diabate can add a jumper to all of this, then watch out. He's made 55% of his far twos so far, but the sample size is tiny with only 6 makes. Still, you might not want to leave him open. Finally, Diabate can also add value through his offensive rebounding. His size is already an advantage, but he's also pretty tenacious. Diabate can track and gather rebounds to give Michigan second chance opportunities. Whenever he's on the floor, he grabs almost 18% of offensive rebounds. However, there are still a lot of question marks over Diabate. He has not shown that he can do any one thing on offense consistently. For one, he still has to get stronger. Diabate plays tough, but he remains skinny and can have problems playing through contact and around the basket. Then his face-up game is still really raw. Yes, he's shown some flashes, but there are other times where it looks like his body is still catching up to his mind. The jump shot is also still an unknown, for the most part because the sample size is so tiny, but his free throw numbers are also bad. Overall, we just need to keep seeing a lot more of Diabate before coming to any definitive conclusions. Much like Trevor Keels, I really like Diabate on defense. He has shown some appealing versatility early on in his freshman season, but first and foremost, Diabate can protect the rim. With his height, length, and athleticism, Diabate knows how to defend the basket. He can hang back, track drives, and block shots. Or he can also step out to the perimeter and then get the stop. Diabate is averaging 3 blocks per 40 minutes and has looked like a stud at times for Michigan. He has also been a mature defender in pick-and-roll scenarios. Diabate can come up high, stunt, and then recover to his big. He can read the floor and does not want to make too many risky decisions. I need to keep seeing more, but I've been encouraged by the flashes so far. Then, Diabate can also defend in space. This is where I've been most impressed by him. Diabate has looked incredibly nimble for a 6'11" big. He can come out to the perimeter, get down low in a stance, and then slide with drives all the way. If Diabate is sliding with you, it's hard to get that shot off. He's long enough to either block it or bother it. Right now, I would feel more than comfortable switching Diabate in pick and roll situations because he is capable of handling these challenges. The biggest improvement area, again for Diabate though, is his strength. This keeps popping up in his scouting report, and if we go back to the rebounding and the physicality, Diabate can definitely struggle with this. I don't know that this will matter as much in the NBA where there are less post-ups nowadays, but Diabate really struggled to contain Arizona's Christian Koloko. Koloko overwhelmed Diabate down low with his strength, and the French big man could not do much about it. So most definitely, going forward, he will need to add muscle, weight, and strength. For this week, I have chosen to focus on two guys who I'm actually pretty high on early on in the draft process. Trevor Keels and Moussa Diabate. Keels from Duke, Diabate from Michigan. And both of these guys have been incredibly impressive so far for different reasons. Keels, I do have question marks, like I said over the video, about what his fit in the half court is. Is he really a true point guard? Is he more of a, a guard that has to play alongside other guards? I think that it will be interesting to see him outside of the Duke setting, where he's sort of been, I don't want to say pigeonholed, but just due to the way that the roster construction is with Paolo Banchero, with Wendell Moore Jr., I think he's had to take this little bit more of a tertiary role, probably, really, in the half court. It will be interesting to see how that pans out, but I'm huge on his defense. I love his physical tools. I love his strength, his athleticism. I love how hard he plays. And most of all, I think that Trevor Keels is a guy that you want on your team to make winning plays. Now with Diabate, this is a guy who's 6'11"-ish, almost 7 feet tall. I'm guessing he's probably still going to keep growing. And on his Instagram, he lists himself as a shooting guard. Now obviously this is all in jest, but you watch Diabate on the court and he certainly moves like a guard. He is so fluid, so mobile for someone so big. He is really coordinated and just, he can play out of the triple threat, and we've already seen this early on in the season. He can jab step, he can face up, he can draw fouls that way, he can get into a little face-up jumper. He might even be able to stretch the floor down the line, which honestly, I'm pretty confident that he will be able to do this. Now with Diabate, it's still very early on, and he is still raw. He has to get stronger. He has not, played at a super high level for super long, even though I do think that some of the concerns about how green he is are overstated. I'm not one of those guys who necessarily thinks that Diabate needs more than just one season in college. I think that he can perfectly be a one and done, especially if he keeps going the way that he is doing now. Now, could he use more experience, more polishing? Does he need more reps under his belt? Absolutely, but I feel like every prospect really at the end of the day needs those things. Diabate, really fluid, athletic, has shown enough to make me believe that he can shoot. He can do the basics as a big, rim running, playing above the rim, whatever the case may be. Switchable on defense. And overall, I am very, very fascinated to see how the rest of his season will play out. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. Make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Stock Watch, if you want to see more Stock Watch in the future, and how regularly you guys want to see it. And of course, if you enjoy the channel, if you enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe. Take care, happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate, and I'll catch you guys next time.